think the meta will be when we shift away from draft champions, something that is inherently different in the live finals than a mode where you are able to bring the exactly the playbook that you want and exactly the players that you want within the salary limits?
I think you're going to see a lot more people passing the ball. I think that passing is going to dominate the entire strategy.
Why is that?
Because you're going to get guys like Boog, Spotmeplzzz, Skimbo, where they're going to go spend their salary cap is on their passing offense, the receivers. And one of the things they say about draft champions is certain defenses work better in draft champions when you don't have the best receivers available to you. So a lot of the critique of draft champions was, well, D. Jones, the defense he was running, all that coverage, is a very good defense for draft champions. Maybe not so much for a salary cap tournament where you're going to have Boogs, who's going to have Jerry Rice out there. He's going to have Julio Jones, Steve McNair, quarterback. He's going to have every single receiver that he needs to be able to run the offense he needs to get separation from people.
Okay, so my question to you then, Gibbs, is will we see more offense than we saw, and this is for you too, Farles, will we see more offense than we saw in the Madden Classic, or will we see more defense than we saw in the Madden Classic?
Defensively, players will be better because their teams will be more optimized to what they want to do. So no one will show up without a Mel Blount, in my opinion. Everyone will have him unless somebody else new comes out. But for the most part, defense will be stronger because they'll be able to pick where their weakness is, as opposed to draft champions somewhat giving them some of where their weakness is, but then also allowing them to pick a little bit of where their weakness is. So I expect more defense, but like Gibbs said, more of an offensive show because everyone will feel comfortable, A, with their playbook, B, with their team, about where they can go. So offense, I think just it will be played at a higher level because there's less randomness in the mode versus a draft champions mode where part of the skill of draft champions is taking one draft, utilizing the randomness to your advantage, versus salary cap where studying one lineup and getting familiar with it is more rewarded. So both have those elements, and you're weak in both areas, but both take a slightly different amount of both take a ton of time and research and knowing all the items, but one of them does it randomly a little bit more, and one of them does it more
I agree with you.
With picks.
I agree with you. I think we're probably going to see the meta at a higher level, perhaps, or maybe not at a higher level necessarily, but at a different level, because you're literally using playbooks and players that you've been practicing with for months, versus guys that you maybe you had to adapt to. I think that's the two big key differences for me between draft champions and salary cap is using the playbook and players that you know versus adapting. And adaptation is a huge thing for draft champions, and I think they both provide equally interesting outcomes, but it will be interesting to see just that high level of just familiarity that these people have, and how does that change things?
What I really like about salary cap ranked is no player has an excuse this time, and there were players that had better drafts than other players, and there were players that got their comfortable playbooks versus players that didn't get their playbooks, but that's all part of the realm of possibility in draft champions. Everyone knows that going into it. But now you don't really have that, well, I didn't have my guy. I didn't have my Brandon Cooks. I didn't have my Randy Moss. I didn't have my playbook. There's none of that in salary cap. It all kind of falls back on you as saying, wow, that guy had Steven Jackson. He was smarter than me. Not like, oh, he had Steven Jackson. He's lucky he got to pick him. Everyone has a chance to get every item. So
right.
As we get further towards Madden Bowl and people start to build those teams up, it goes back to you, and you don't really have that excuse. So not that anyone used that as an excuse, but it's even better.
All right, Gibbs, any final thoughts on the meta going into the Madden Bowl? You guys have any predictions as well? Who do you think, if you were to make predictions, I'm not going to make any personally, but I want to hear from you guys. Who do you think we will see again because of their specific strengths, and who do you think there's a chance does not make Madden Bowl that did make the Madden Classic, if you want to?
I think Spotmeplzzz, I think he makes another run. His defense was so good. his passing offense is just going to get better from going into salary cap. I think Problem needs to get his offense figured out. I think it's going to become more of an offensive game. I think his defense was good. It got him pretty far. But, he ran into D. Jones, who completely locked him up. Look at D. Jones. I have questions about his defense now. But we'll see how some of those storylines unfold. I also look at guys like Jet Steele. I think he could make another run. Other guys I got eliminated. Drag. You got Goes Madden out there. You got Matster Gamer. Big time salary cap.
Bob Marley.
Like Matster Gamer, big time salary cap player. He's the number one guy on the leaderboard every single year. He's a salary cap specialist. I really think I kind of feel like he could get a shot to make it into the group stages through qualifying. So,
Charles?
Just got to get to group stage. Like Gibbs said, there was a lot of good players that got eliminated. They just didn't get a draft that went their way, or they didn't get a playbook that went their way, or they missed a bounce here or a bounce there. So those players that Gibbs noted, I think have a big chance to come back in salary cap and kind of control some of those things that they couldn't the first time. And then as far as players continuing to make runs, the only questions I really have revolve around some of the emotional guys a guy like a Little Man, who is a veteran in the community, a guy like a Joke, who's a veteran in the community. They use that energy to fuel them to Burbank, but once they got to Burbank, it kind of backfired on them a little bit. They got really hyped up, really excited. They both started out pretty good, and then the emotion of the day just kind of like coasted down, and they couldn't finish off the job. So I expect Little Man to learn from it, and I expect a guy like Joke to learn from it, because they're both technically on the sticks, X's and O's, tremendous. And they'll definitely make a run back, and it's just controlling it once they get there.